Doctor on Call comes to you compliments Antillean Life Insurance, Hills and Valley Pharmacy, and the Spice Isle Imaging Center.
Drug abuse, cancer,
measles, diabetes, AIDS, cancer.
Good evening once again, and welcome to Doctor on Call. And this evening, we're in part 3 of our series looking at diabetes and, of course, some of the complications that can arise from that. It's all part of Diabetes Awareness Month. We'll be looking at that for the month of November. And we promised you very early that this evening, Dr. Dwight Matthias will be joining us. Well, he is here, and we will be introducing him shortly. Dr. Matthias, in fact, is a very accomplished physician. In fact, he practices both general endocrinology and internal medicine in Virginia, USA. And twice yearly, he does a general endocrine clinic here in Grenada. Now, there's so much to tell you about Dr. Matthias that if I went into everything, we might find ourselves doing an entire program on Dr. Matthias and not on diabetes. So, we'll just share with you a little bit, and as time goes on, you'll get to hear more about him. Of course, he's no stranger to the program. He's been here before, and he will be back definitely. All right. He's presently a member of the Endocrine Society and is a member of the Finance and Audit Committee. He's a member of the American Association of Clinical Endocrinologists and also the American Diabetes Association. He's a fellow of the American College of Physicians. All right. Dr. Matthias is a member of the Board of Directors at St. George's University Alumni Association. He loves music. Yeah. So maybe we may ask him to sing a song for us this evening. But folks, we welcome our viewers on GBN Television, our viewers on our Facebook page and YouTube channel, and also our listeners on K105 FM. It's a pleasure to welcome with us again Dr. Dwight Matthias. Dr. Dwight, good evening and welcome back to Doctor on Call.
Thank you for the introduction, and I'm very pleased you didn't read my biography in thorough, because I think I'd have signed out when you start doing it. But to the audience, I say good night to you all, and as November is Diabetes Month, and I'm here to answer your questions and as best as I can, and to share the updated information. Good night to you all.
Boy, thank you very much. And of course, my very dear friend, my co-host, my go-to person when I need information regarding anything medical. Dr. Nixon, good evening and welcome back.
Welcome back from where?
Well, there we go. I do that on purpose.
I can't ever go anywhere.
I do it on purpose because I like to hear you say that.
Good evening, Grenada. It's good to be here anyway. It's good to be here sharing life, strengthening, empowering information with our population. That's so very important to myself. And I'm happy that Dr. Dwight is here because Dr. Dwight has that passion for wellness, for controlling whatever is there already, and above all, for preventing disease. Tonight we're going to talk about diabetes because it's World Diabetes. Yesterday was World Diabetes Day, that day when the world kind of focuses. Notice we're wearing blue tonight, okay? That's a color for diabetes. And but the whole month, there's a lot of focus. There are many activities. Ms. Davis spoke about activities that are happening during the week. But more than anything, we kind of want people to remember that they have to think about it. If you don't have diabetes as yet, go and make sure you do not. Or if you do, you can grasp it early, because tonight we're going to focus on early detection, but early detection comes from awareness, looking out, screening to make sure it's not hanging around. And of course, making sure that we have good control to prevent, to enhance quality of life, to maintain a good quality of life, to enhance quality of life, and of course to prevent complications. But that's all Dr. Dwight's work tonight. I'm just here to support him.
Yes, yes. Well, to support me. In fact, tonight I'm putting you in the hot seat. You're the host tonight. I'm the co-host because I am relying on you. I'm passing the buck to you.
But I can't say I'm host. I'm Catholic. That's sacrilege.
You are going to be bowling all the fastballs and the googlies at Dr. Matthias this evening. So let me just start by quickly asking Dr. Matthias, although we've done it on numerous occasions, but just put into perspective for us very, very briefly the whole thing about diabetes and how serious we ought to take it.
Well, the bottom line is that's a very good question, and I think that we think in diabetes in short term. We don't look in long term. Basically, a physician may say you have a diabetes, stop eating, drinking sugars, and that's it. But the aim of diabetes management is to prevent death, and that is to say the stroke, the heart attack, the amputation, going on dialysis, getting blind, etc. That's the objective of diabetes, to prevent these complications. And through that journey, there's lots of issues that occur: mental illness, isolation, loss of income, you just name it. So diabetes itself is a complex, complicated, and a prolonged disease. And as time go along, it gets worse. So I'm going to just leave it like that. We can tease that out later. So hopefully that helps.
Yes,
Dr. Dwight. Before we move on, I think it's fitting. We just lost one of our colleagues who, like you, that dedicated his life, practice endocrinology, and in particular to the management of diabetes. He a very impassioned gentleman. I would like to ask you to say a few words about Dr. Peter.
I remember it was about 4 or 5 years ago when I returned to Grenada during one of my sessions, and someone mentioned to me there was an endocrinologist on the island. And I made it my duty before I see any patient during that period of time to visit his office. And I went to his office and I introduced myself to Dr. Peters. My wife was with me at that time. And I could remember how pleased he was that I'm doing such a work there. And I was thankful to him for returning home to provide endocrine service to Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique. And recently, hearing of his loss, I know within our community, we have lost someone who is dear to the endocrine world in our community.
I think we just lost Dr.
The medical community has learned to appreciate his presence at Bristol.
And so we thank him, and that for all the service he's given, even in the last decade. I think since he's been back, we're very grateful for what he's been able to. And I want to empathize with his family, his wife, his daughter, his other children, the rest of the medical fraternity, and to the patient who would have lost a very valuable caregiver. We send our condolences, and we agree with you as this goes on. Hopefully Dr. Dwight will come back soon and fill the space.
Yes.
You're really hoping that you would come back. I mean, I think Grenada deserves it, considering the amount of a population that currently has diabetes. It is important that we have somebody who takes diabetes care to a high level. While we have our primary care physicians and some of our hospital interventionists, I think it's also important that we have somebody who really focuses on more than maybe 2 bodies. We are only 100,000 people, but still, the prevalence and the incidence of diabetes requires that we have people who understand at even a more profound level and who can help us to prevent, as you say, the deaths.
On that point, the International Diabetes Federation put out some data recently saying that there's over 10,000 folks diagnosed with diabetes in Grenada. And out of that, 35% of them is unaware that they have diabetes. And that's a quite unfortunate situation. And last year, the cost of caring for diabetic patients in Grenada was over 10 million. over. Now, that itself, do we have the resources to care for our diabetic patients? So that's why it's very important to do the preventative steps to prevent the complications and the cost, etc.
So since you went the Dr. Matthias, can you speak about the panacea of diabetes in Grenada? What do you see coming from outside? I think it's easier to see than we who live here and manage patients with it. What is it that you see about diabetes?
Okay.
First of all, what makes us have diabetes? We Grenadians, what is our problem? And why we don't do what we have to do, or why do we do what we have to do? How do we manage this? How do we prevent so many of us dying?
All right. I started diabetes sessions on Monday, and Monday I had type 1, type 2 diabetes clinic. And I think it's very important for us to understand the categories of diabetes and the cause of those diabetes. When we mention type 1 diabetes, it simply means our body is self-destroying the beta cells that produce insulin. So as a result of that, there'll be absolute or no insulin production. That is type 1. Type 2 diabetes is a chronic condition by lifestyle, weight gain, hypertension, eating habits, family history per se, etc. And there is a gradual loss or a decrease in quantity of insulin production, and that leads to high blood sugars. If we wish to distinguish again in terms of age, usually in the type 1 patients, they are much younger than the type 2, but today we are seeing an overlap that is very difficult to discern the type 1, type 2. Then we can look at, for example, the symptoms that presents, and we're going to address that later. And the treatment of the type 1, type 2, yes, type 1 diabetics usually begin with insulin therapy versus type 2 diabetics, which may start with oral agents. But as we know, as diabetes is a progressive disease, as time goes along, that type 2 diabetic patient may eventually require insulin. So I hope that gives a sense of the distinguish the type 1, type 2 diabetes. But within our community, I think if I have to give a grade in how we treat our diabetic patients as a physician, and I'll give the physician a grade, and I'll give the patient a grade. The physician a grade because of the limited formulary that is here. We are not doing a good job. We are truly not doing a good job. The patient, I give them a better grade because they want more. They are thirsty for information. They want to be in control of the diabetes. And I see to a degree that they are not getting that information that they deserve. So they go on the internet and they have lots of information and not being able to package the information. And when they come to me, I have to say, stop, let's understand this is a difference. So what we need is a clearer pathway in terms of treating diabetes, have a algorithm, if you wish for that, and follow that algorithm. But remember, diabetes care is targeted therapy for the patient. You have to target the patient, what you're seeing, etc., in front of you. This patient has diabetes. Is the patient obese? This patient has diabetes. Do they have heart disease? This patient has diabetes. They cannot afford the medication. And the choices varies per patient. It is not the same for everyone. But in our community, we are just using, certain medications.
Cookie cutter.
What's that?
Cookie cutter.
And I think we need to open that Pandora box and get more experience in other drugs, because it's remarkable. The outcome of those drugs are tremendous in today's environment. And hopefully I will go into that later.
So basically, you mark us hard, and I think that's fair, that the doctors be marked, the medical fraternity, the caregivers be marked hard, because we have a responsibility, don't we, to ensure that we acquire information as evidence grows, that we go out there and figure out what's going on in the rest of the world. You spoke about formulary. You have to speak English when you speak it on this station, okay?
Stand corrected.
So formulary is what is available in the pharmacy, more or less, okay? The drugs that are available. And if we check the national formulary, that which the government produces, for example, you don't find drugs that have been there for like 20 years, like Januvia, that has been available, right? That knows generic drugs that are not yet on our formulary. So I think you're correct when you mark us hard, because I think we have to go there as physicians. I'm speaking for myself, and I'm taking my colleagues with me. I think we have to go out there and really look for information and learn more and be interested in seeing how is the world moving, how are other people keeping their people from getting diabetes, and how are they managing diabetes to prevent premature death, because that's where the challenge comes. You're going to die anyway, but you don't want to die when you're 50 and without legs. Do you understand? So I'm saying we have to go out and be curious and have that passion as colleagues, so that when we can't find what's out there, we can advocate. Right? Healthcare givers must be able to advocate to the government or whoever is that massive provider, whether it's an insurance company, whether it's a national insurance, a national health insurance, who it is. We must be able to go there and advocate for things that we know work according to the evidence we've seen. Evidence you've seen in similar populations with diabetes are manifested like us. That is what is ours. So we good. Mark us hard. Maybe we hope within the next 5 years we get better grades. But that's really a challenge.
I think it will be sooner rather than later. Because what is important, for example, the different regimen or the classes of drugs out there, as you know, throughout the years since the discovery of insulin, it has been evolved. Because we learn more about diabetes. We learn more about the defect that in diabetes. It's not only pancreas-centered. We know that there are peripheral tissues. We know that there is the kidney. Even the brain plays a role in blood sugar control. Even our gut. There are different systems that play a role in managing diabetes. And we are fortunate enough to have available medication to approach or to attack or to help improve blood glucose control with those various organs. And I'll be giving a CME program to the medical community on Thursday here in Grenada, where I'll go further in detail into these mechanism and drugs, etc. But though you have to have choice, I'm not saying that that you have to have all the medication, but each category of medication. For example, we have the biguanidines class, and they are the metformin. We have the sulfonylurea. This is the local drug that is used here, diamicron class. We have the DPP-4s class. That's the Januvia that we use here. Then we have the incretins, the blood peptide class. They are the Ozempic and the Trulicity, etc. that is out there. And we have a new drug out there, the teriflunomide, that is helping. And these drugs are tremendous in terms of improvement of blood sugars that is out there. And I think within our community, where obesity is on a trajectory up, and we know as obesity goes up, the incidence of diabetes goes up, and so we need lifestyle changes, etc. So there's lots out there, and some basic points. I want us not to forget the basic point. Number one, drink more water. Drink lots of water every day. There are lots of hidden sugars in food that that we aren't aware of. Have a nutritional consult. Portion size. You know our portion size are huge. Cut that back. Don't look at your plate. Your plate, if it's color on your plate, a green, a yellow, a white, a brown. Not only white and brown. You gotta have a colorful plate. What about exercise? Grannon's Beach, Pandy Beach. You know where I'm from now. You exercise every day, and we have too much screen time. We spend too much time in front of the screen. Just those basic things I outlined here can do lots to improve diabetes care. Not only the medication, because as a clinician, if someone has diabetes, the first prescription is lifestyle change and exercise. That's the first. Lifestyle change, which include decreased carbs, increased exercise. Let's see how you do after, and then we transition. I give you that choice to make some lifestyle change, and we will build from that on follow-up visit in 2 weeks. And then if you show no improvement, then I can transition you to medical therapy. May it be oral or may it be injectables.
Dr. Matthias, I want to ask a question. As a nice boy from Pandy Beach, you just say it, okay? I'm just reiterating here. No, but seriously, as a Grenadian, what do you think puts us at risk? We Grenadians. Let's talk just Grenadian tonight. What it is that puts us at risk for developing sugar? One is, and we're going to come and expand that. But tell me what makes us big people get diabetes.
I think is the food choices, our lack of exercise, and those are two major things that are playing a role here. It's not to say as a kid, well, food choices. Look at it. How many of us? All right, look at turkey fries. You know, we spend so much money. I know I get some feedback on that, but the amount of calories in those foods is outrageous, and the fats, etc., in those foods, fast food. Let me just use fast food as a feedback there. You know, we eat too much of that. We have more natural foods that we can use that have more complex carbs in our natural foods that are beneficial for us. Snug, you know, remember as kids, we will probably have some banana and some saltfish during the morning. Now what you want some bread, and you got to put some other stuff on that, you know. And then you may even have a soda when we will have some black sage, whatever, you know, just the local kind of stuff. And folks were walking. No one will walk from Grand Anse to town anymore, or from Belmont to town anymore, or from St. Paul's. You got to get a ride, period. You don't see folks walking the street as a kid growing up. Everyone drives, etc. And that's what I'm saying. The fundamental treatment of diabetes, I said, lifestyle change, decrease carbs, increase physical activity, and within our community, we are not doing that.
So what are these carbs? What do you call carbs? That's a nice big word, okay?
Right. Bread, pasta, rice, potatoes, cakes, soft drinks, etc. Like
sugar.
Today,
sugars and starches.
Sugar and starches, you got it, yes. Because today I had a young man in clinic, he's 25 years old, and I was asking simply, what is your diet? He said, Doc, I love pasta.
What the hell is pasta? That's my question.
Macaroni, you know.
I know, but that's my question. What is pasta?
But he loves it. And I said, whenever you eat a portion, do you go back for seconds? He said, sure. And there's a reason he goes back for sure, because he's getting this glucose surge, and this surge of insulin release, his sugar drops, and there's a hunger sensation, so he wants to feel it more. You know, rather than a slow uptake of glucose, there's a rapid, you know, and as a result, a surge of insulin releases, etc. So there's reasons behind all that.
I want to come in with a question. You mentioned one of the reasons bad food choices and lack of exercise. Let's put exercise into context here. Do we have to go, let's say, run 5 miles every day, or 5 in the morning, 5 in the evening? Let's put the exercise into context. Because I think maybe some people probably they're afraid of that.
That's a very important. On the back burner, or even in the early phase of diabetes, there is something called insulin resistance. And what happens there that may lead to our muscles, our peripheral tissues like fat cells and muscles, are not sensitive enough to insulin. And with exercise, you increase that sensitivity so you can dispose of glucose faster from the bloodstream. So that's one of the reasons why exercise is important in terms of getting disposal of glucose from the blood vessels to the tissue and for the utilization of glucose. So exercise will also benefit a general well-being of our body, the blood flow through and the perfusion of our organs itself. It releases many hormones to help quality of life.
And more active muscles burn more glucose.
Yes.
And then,
For example, if you want to pass the meal, after the pasta meal, go exercise, at least jog a couple of miles. And I would object to you doing that.
So did you know that in Mexico they've banned the sale of ramen, the packets of ramen, to the population because they've had such a problem with childhood obesity.
Yes,
and in the context of childhood obesity, I want you to speak. Before we go into separating it, speak to childhood obesity because that's one of our challenges today. Can you speak a little to childhood obesity in the context of potential for developing diabetes?
Well, childhood obesity leads to the incidence of diabetes, period. We are seeing early onset of diabetes because you remember I said early distinguishing type 1, type 2 is usually at a younger age. And now we are seeing the childhood obesity leading to early onset of type 2 diabetes. It's all because of too much screen time.
And sugar.
The kids have to be active. You remember, if you can recall, during our kindergarten or Form 1 or Form 2 or even, standard school years, we usually get these 15 minutes break to just burn that energy up and run around the yard and do a lot of stuff like that. That's important. We were preventing diabetes at that time without thinking about it. But now kids don't move as much because we give them the iPads and etc. and the screen and just sit there and look at it, and they're not burning the energy up. And that itself creates the insulin resistance, the obesity, and that leads to diabetes. In other words, your pancreas have to work twice as hard to keep sugar normalized, and it's as it's working from an early age. So by the age you're 20, you're diabetic. So here again, childhood obesity. Remember, obesity is not only diabetes, but it can lead to gallstones. It could even be a progenitor to certain cancers, etc.
Hypertension.
Hypertension. You're right. Yeah.
Godfrey, you're asking a question.
Yeah, well, no, I'll ask after. Let's just take a short break. We'll take a break right now. We take a short break, and then we'll come back. So stay with us, folks. Don't go away.
Cancer.
Believe in our strength, we'll stand by you. Protection from all perils, big and small. Reassurance we give, it's so glad to see. Peace of mind, that's our service guarantee. We look after all our family. Yes, we do at every opportunity.
Antillian Group, underwriters of all classes of insurance solutions for your protection and investment. Live well financially.
Here is a little known fact. There is only one place in Grenada that you can get an MRI scan done. That place is Spicile Imaging Center. Yes, Grenada, that's the truth. Other centers could offer you other scans, but Spicile Imaging provides an authentic MRI scan. Here's another little known fact. Spicile Imaging has 3 centers. We operate at Grenville, the Carnage, and at the Ocean House, Grand Anse. We provide the widest range of laboratory tests and services. CT scans, x-rays, mammograms, ultrasounds, and a host of other services. We are fully staffed by a team of family doctors and specialists. Call us today at 444-7679 or 406-1500 or visit any of our 3 locations. Spicile Imaging, from seeing the doctor to getting lab tests, scans, and pharmacy services. We are here to take care of you.
If there was ever a time to keep and stay healthy, it's now. We at Hills and Valley are here to help you take deliberate steps to maintain your health. We stayed true to maintaining the most comprehensive rates while stocking the widest range of medicines and health devices, including personal protective equipment. There are so many benefits shopping with us. You get great savings through discounts for senior citizens and reward cards for loyal customers. Ask about owning yours today. Visit us at Halifax and Grenville Street, St. George, Jubilee Street opposite the Grenville Bus Terminal, and at Hillsborough, Carriacou. Our wholesale distribution on Halifax Street also stocks the widest range of pharmaceuticals. We are with you on the hills and in the valleys. We are Hills and Valley Pharmacy.
Why wish upon a star? For a bank is better by far. Whatever you're wishing for this Christmas, we'll give you low interest and no fun.
Make your wishes come true this Christmas with a loan from Co-op Bank. Make those home renovations, treat your family and friends, and get the things on your Christmas list. All of this is possible with our hassle-free financing of up to $40,000. Apply today and you can be one of the 5 lucky customers to win a shopping spree. Have it all as you wish this Christmas with Co-op Bank. Visit our website or your nearest retail banking unit for more details. Terms and conditions apply.
Christmas wishes come true with Co-op Bank and you. Welcome home.
The loss of sexual desire and endurance can be both devastating and frustrating to a man. To gain these feelings back with a sense of power and stamina that lasts, use Hard On Plus. Hard On Plus, this natural herbal male sexual formula enriched with zinc, has no side effects. Hard On Plus offers vitality and strength to last longer when it matters. For stamina, for strength, for pleasure. Get Hard On Plus.
Hard On Plus is available at Gabriel's Pharmacy, Pedmotor St. David, St. David's Pharmacy, Thebayade, St. Andrew's Pharmacy, Grenville, Health Plus Pharmacy, Sutton Brown Street, Grenville, We Care Pharmacy, Granby Street, St. George's, Gittins Pharmacare, Halifax Street, St. George's, Grenada Pharmacies, Hills and Valley Pharmacies, St. George's, Grenville and Carriacou, all Gittins Healthcare Pharmacies, and Atlantic Health Supplies. Welcome back, everyone. It's Doctor and Call. In case you're just joining us, we welcome you, and of course our viewers on our Facebook page. Just before we get back, there are a couple of comments on our Facebook page, Dr. Matthias. Someone is telling us that people need to be educated when taking their medication, especially insulin. The doctor will prescribe a certain unit amount each day, morning and evening. Without testing their glucose level, they just take the amount prescribed, and sometimes it can cause issues by it dropping too low. So that's one comment. They also need to be educated about the signs and symptoms of type 2 diabetes. So, Doc, this is just a couple of comments. We have some more that we'll take, throughout the course of the program.
I think as we go along and doctor explains the clinical and the whole issue of, understanding, knowing that you have diabetes or sugar and treating, monitoring comes in as a very important part. So that is all going to come. So thank the observer, the guests for observing and reminding us of all of the things, because I think the population really guides us as to where the deficiencies are in knowledge. So thank you.
Yes.
So Dr. Matthias, tell us about you talk about type 1 and type 2. Can you categorize for us so we can understand better? Talk about why diabetes is what it is, as opposed to just kidney problems, or explain exactly what is this sugar thing, where all this sugar in our blood comes from.
Thanks for that question. It is a very important question, and I tried to explain that on the initial visit of my clinic visit. This is how I approach it. We need sugar for energy. Every action, I'm speaking to you now, I need sugar to be converted to energy so I can articulate, I can move my head, and you can listen to what I'm saying. So every action in the body requires energy, and we get that energy from sugar. We use the word sugar because we get it from the carbohydrates. Every carbohydrate is a product of sugar molecules getting together to give you the carbs. Where do we get sugar from? Where does the body get sugar from? It gets sugars from two sources: what we eat and what the liver makes. Right? There's a process that the liver makes sugar. So what we eat, it's absorbed in our gut, and then it's getting to the bloodstream. So we ingest it, it's broken down, it enters our bloodstream, and you have these sugar molecules in the bloodstream. Where do they go? They have to go somewhere. Our liver is making sugar continuously, and that has to be controlled. So when sugar enters the bloodstream and it reaches that critical level, what happens is that the pancreas becomes aware of that, and it produces insulin. And insulin, in turn, takes that sugar and sends it to the fat cells and to the muscles for storage so that the sugar could return back to the normal range. Remember, I said initially, I'm diabetic, absolute absence of insulin. So in type 1 diabetic, the sugars enter the bloodstream and it has nowhere to go because there is no insulin to dispose of that sugar, to take that sugar and send it to fat cells and muscles for storage. And in type 2 diabetic patients, the quantity of insulin that you are producing is not enough for the glucose load, the sugar load that you had from what you eat and what the liver is making. Because the sugar that comes from the liver, the insulin controls that. The insulin would dampen the release, but you have less insulin, so the liver is saying, whoa, I'm on party now. I'm going to just produce more sugar. And that leads to continuous high sugar because you are eating and producing more sugar, and the liver is still producing more sugar, and higher it goes. And that glucose level is very toxic. It is very toxic. And that's when you develop some of those symptoms for diabetes. But let me say this before I go further. There are about 4 criteria we use to diagnose someone with diabetes to know when these things are occurring. There are blood work which we look at. One is called the hemoglobin A1C or just the A1C. And that's a measurement in percentage of the average blood sugar over 3 months, the A1C. If it's equal or greater than 6.5, you are diagnosed with diabetes. If you have a random blood glucose with symptoms, the symptoms that the person on the Facebook page mentioned, those symptoms are frequent urination, peeing a lot, drinking a lot of water, very thirsty, blurry vision, long time to heal, etc. Women may have yeast infection, etc. Those are things that will tell the physician that person has high blood sugar. Right? So keep that in mind. Those are some of the symptoms we look at, or we could do blood work to identify if the patient has diabetes and do the necessary step and management of that. So the diabetes, what we are thinking about, or Dr. Nixon has asked, is because we haven't got enough insulin. The sugar levels, the glucose levels within the bloodstream are above the normal range. The normal range for blood sugar usually 65 to 99. Be fasting in the morning. 65, yes. Doc, are you sane? Many folks will say that. No, 65 to 99 milligrams per DL. That's fasting in the morning. And once you go above that, let's say greater than 99 to 125, you are considered pre-diabetes. And we know in the pre-diabetes stage, at least 10 to 15% of patients will already start developing complication of diabetes, which is very fascinating. That's why, as endocrinologists, we don't like using the word prediabetes because we know complications can occur, small vessels complication can occur in those individuals. So here again, how important it is to monitor your blood sugars. Now, monitoring yourself, things have happened, since then. you have to monitor. You got to know your numbers to know if you're being managed appropriately or effectively, or you're doing the right stuff, or you're eating the right stuff. How do you manage? You manage before a meal and 2 hours after a meal. Why 2 hours after a meal? Usually, an hour and a half, 2 hours after a meal, you should return back to baseline glucose reading. If you're not, if you stay elevated, it tells us two things. One, you ate the wrong thing. Your food had too much carbs in it. Right? That's one. If you didn't eat the carbs and let's say you took your medication and the sugars remain high, the dose of that medication or the kind of medication you're on may have to be adjusted. So there are different reasons that the sugars could remain high. And what I want you to remember is that if your sugars are high, don't think that you need more medication. Think about it. You ate the wrong thing. If your sugar drops, don't say that you need to eat more. Say basically, I need less of the medication. Because many patients themselves will say, oh, my sugar is low, I need to eat more. No, the medication that causes sugars to drop. Please don't try to say that you have to eat more. And there is conflict there. So again, before meals, you check your blood sugar. 2 hours after you eat, if it's high, most likely it's what you ate. So for example, if Mr. P did his blood sugar before eating, it was 90. He took his medication, he had his breakfast, and 2 hours later, it's 250. Reevaluates his breakfast, is what he ate. Right? Don't say the medication is not working. I will say 99% of the time it's what you ate that caused. Doc, I haven't eaten anything. So what is causing the blood sugar to go up? Yes, there are certain medications that if you take, you can have high levels after, like steroids, like prednisone. That can happen. It creates a insulin resistance and lead to that. We will determine that and we will treat appropriately. Mm-hmm. The postprandial, that's the sugars 2 hours after. It should be less than 140 after you eat, etc. So what I've just said here, the diagnosis of diabetes can be based on symptoms, and that will lead us to do the testing of the A1C or the random blood glucose, etc. And then we recommend that you should be checking your blood sugar before you eat and 2 hours after you eat. Doc, I got to check my fingers 6 times a day? No, you just do it once or twice a day at different times. Case in point, Monday, before breakfast, 2 hours after breakfast. Tuesday, before lunch, 2 hours after lunch. Wednesday, before dinner, 2 hours. So every day there's a different time frame which you check your blood sugar, and even at bedtime. Get an overnight. See what is happening while you're sleeping. You're going to bed with a good number, but you're getting up with a high number in the morning. Are you sleepwalking and eating from bread in the refrigerator? Who knows? We got to find that out. So do it 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and let's see what happens. So yes, know your numbers. Remember, the day has 24 hours, not only in the morning checking blood sugar. There's lots of activities that are occurring through the day that you need to know about. Dr. Nixon, I hope I answered your question.
Right. Doc, you're muted. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I could ask you a lot more questions, Dr. Matthias. Hear me. So hear what I hear. I hear that we talk about how body manages its sugars. But I want us to tell our patients that all sugars are born equal, right? So whether you eat sugar cake that your grandmother make in her pot at home, right? Or you eat buns that your mother make, or you eat cheesecake that come from foreign or from Cheesecake Factory, it's the same sugar, right? Because at the end of the day, all sugars become equal, doesn't matter. Or you eat pasta or too much yam or too much breadfruit, right? Am I correct?
Or you eat the apple or you eat the grape.
Or you eat too much apples and too much grapes, right? Or you drink sodas, or you drink Marby that you make home that is too sweet. So at the end of the day, we're talking about how everything breaks down to sugar, all right? I hear you talking about, so your sugar becomes elevated because your body is having a problem controlling it because this insulin.
Hold that point. Let me say here, folks, what we have to understand, call that lactose. We have sugar in fruits, and we call that fructose. And we have sugar in our bread, etc., and we call that glucose. It's just different. They are different sugar molecules, and when they get together, those sugar molecules can be called saccharides. These are terms I'm empowering you. And these saccharides, when they are together, they form the carbohydrates. So build blocks are sugar molecules together. I just wanted to distinguish that because everyone thinks that a sugar is something sweet always, but it's the carbs that we are alluding to.
So that clarifies that. And it don't matter where it comes from. It's a sugar at the end of the day because your body breaks it down in your stomach and you get all of this glucose that you do need for energy, but you need it within a certain limit.
Yes.
Right, okay?
Yes.
So it mustn't go beyond that. And that's important to check. Explain random to me.
At random any time of the day. You could be in the morning, it could be after a meal, it could be...
Let me check my sugar.
Yeah, bedtimes and so random. I'm not eating anything now. I'm just drinking some water during the break. I prick my finger. Bam! It's 250.
Tell people that's not true. You're just being fictitious here.
Well, I haven't checked my finger, right? It's 250. So that's a random sugar. That's a random reading, right? And then the physician will ask, well, Dwight, are you going to the bathroom quite often? How much water are you drinking frequently or sodas? Do you find that you have increased fatigue? Do you find that you're eating, your appetite has changed? So he asked a lot, or she asked a lot of questions regarding possible symptoms of elevated blood sugars. And that will say, here you have someone with a random blood sugar of 250 and these symptoms. You don't need further tests. You are diabetic.
So, Dr. Matthias, we're afraid to juke ourselves. And I think you spoke to monitoring. And most of us have access to monitoring machines, okay? When I was in medical school, we had no glucose meters. And then the hospital had that, nobody can even touch it unless you beg nurse. And now everybody can own one to a lady determines she has 3 glucometers today. So I want you to speak to the empowerment, right? People, we're afraid to joke ourselves, but that's okay. We get accustomed when we realize that we are empowered by being able to check. Can you just speak a little bit about the empowerment that monitoring, self-monitoring brings?
All right, I'm going to critique here. Don't use the word joke himself. That itself tells you something is going to be painful.
No, it's not painful. That's what the people think. So I want you to fix that.
Just the thought of how you say it. You create fear in individuals. So use more, softer words.
Like.
And the technique itself. Don't use the tip of the finger, because what happened? There are more nerve fibers there, and it will be painful. And remember, there is a gauge on that lancet device. The lancet is the device that has the needle in. You start from 1, go to 2, go to 3. It goes up to 7 in some cases. See which one that can help you. So I think 3 is the best. So you put it at 3, and on the side of the finger, not the tip of the finger, on the side, that's where you use it. Now, what's important with that? It empowers the patient for them to know what they are eating and the effect it has on the blood sugar. You may say, Doc, I'm eating healthy. I don't dispute that. Show me the numbers, right? If you show me the numbers that you are eating healthy and the numbers are within range, go for it. But if you say, Doc, listen, I'm eating my bowl of fruit in the morning, I'm exercising, and you're not showing me the numbers. Yeah, fruit is healthy, but you can't handle it as a diabetic patient because, as Dr. Nixon mentioned, it's high in fructose, and you are overwhelming the system because, remember, you're a type 2 diabetic, and the quantity of insulin is less. So if the portion is beyond that quantity, help me. All right, deduce from what I just said. You prick your finger and you see what the sugar is, you're going to say, I need to decrease my portion. Right? Instead of eating an orange, a banana, and then you have some soursop on the side or sapodilla. I mean, those things are healthy, don't get me wrong. But you cannot handle it. you are
Not all of it.
right?
So it's because of moderation and decreasing.
Yeah.
So,
Right,
so
yeah.
it's important. In other words, we have to empower ourselves to use the guidelines that our sugar results give us, so that we can manage. So here's my question now.
That's a very good point you make there. Now, patients say, when I check my... There are many thought leaders or medical organizations within our, sphere, regional, international, etc. Your physician will know what the regional criteria is. I live in both worlds. So, for example, I'm very strict with diabetes. I don't give my diabetics any break. I'm going to be fair with you because I care about them and I want them to have quality of life. So I say to my patients, okay, before every meal, as a diabetic patient, may you be a type 1 or a type 2 without complications, 70 to 110. 70 milligrams per DL to 110 milligrams per DL before meals. Dog, when I'm 70, I feel dizzy, I feel lightheaded. I said, you're an addict. You're an addict to sugar, and I have to detox you. Just like that, I said, right? So whenever because 70 to 99 is normal. But because throughout the years you have been living high, you have acclimatized to high blood sugar. So now I have to bring you down.
Yeah.
But you are having these withdrawal symptoms, and I will advise you how to deal with that. 2 hours after eating, you got to be less than 140. That's what I tell my patient. I get a lot of kickback, but I work with them. We get a strategy, and through a period of time, we are able to achieve the goals. Because many of my colleagues will say, oh, doc, I can't get my patient there. Or even my colleague will be fearful of getting my patients to there. Because the guidelines today says individualize the therapy. And I personally think that some of my colleagues are not aggressive enough because they get that leadway. So they're having mom who is 65, 75-year-old, keeping their blood sugar much higher in the 180s. You will be fine, but I am concerned about the small vessel disease that may occur, the change of vision, etc., the frequent urination you may have, getting up late at night, slipping, hitting the hip. These are things that I'm concerned about. So as long as mom can argue with me, I want my sugar low, period. That's what I do.
All right.
Godfrey, do you have any questions before I go on?
Yeah, I have one question. If someone, as we say, if diabetes runs in someone's family, so if it's hereditary, can one prevent it?
Well, if it's type 2, you can prevent it to a degree. So that's a very good question, and let me highlight that. So if mom and dad has type 2 diabetes, first, from our history as clinicians, we go through something called family history. When did mom develop diabetes, etc.? Then you have an idea about the lifestyle. Is mom or dad obese? What the food eating habits like? Is there other conditions within that family circle that I could deem preventable? So you look at the preventable side of it, and you try to intervene or make some recommendation. Because some of the things we do as adults, we have learned through childhood. And it's very tough for us to separate that. We have to have that will to do that. So family history is very important. And yes, if you have family history of diabetes, you have that risk, but you can decrease that risk.
Okay, so Doc, let's take our final.
That's a question.
Yeah, let's just
take a break.
Our final break. Yeah, we take our final break, and
just start off.
Yeah, we have to take our
questions. Anyway.
We have to take
only have 2 big questions. It will take us about 5 minutes.
Yeah, and after that we'll take some calls. So we take our final break and come right back. Stay with us, folks. Don't go anywhere.
Here is a little known fact. There is only one place in Grenada that you can get an MRI scan done. That place is Spicile Imaging Center. Yes, Grenada. That's the truth. Other centers could offer you other scans, but Spy Cell Imaging provides an authentic MRI scan. Here's another little known fact. Spy Cell Imaging has 3 centers. We operate at Grenville, the Carnage, and at the Ocean House, Grand Anse. We provide the widest range of laboratory tests and services. CT scans, x-rays, mammograms, ultrasounds, and a host of other services. We are fully staffed by a team of family doctors and specialists. Call us today at 444-7679 or 406-1500 or visit any of our 3 locations. Spy Cell Imaging, from seeing the doctor to getting lab tests, scans, and pharmacy services. We are here to take care of you.
For over 80 years, we have been the trusted friend you relied on for comfort, support, and guidance. At Lacroix Brothers, we continue to provide the professional quality services you need when a loved one passes on. And now, for your convenience and added financial ease, we offer specially designed funeral packages for only $6,000 VAT inclusive. Special conditions apply. As you plan ahead, we have removed all enrollment fees for our burial society. This offer ends December 31st. Enter your loved one into eternal rest. Visit Lacroix Brothers Funeral Home for greater choices at the lowest possible prices. Select a package that brings added comfort to the entire family. Serving you from locations in St. George's, Grenville, and Carriacou. Telephone 440-2302. Call us any time of day or visit www.lacroixbrothers.com. Lacroix Brothers Funeral Home, continuing a proud Grenadian tradition of excellence.
Believe in our strength, we'll stand by you. Protection from all perils, big and small. Reassurance we give, it's so clear to see. Peace of mind, that's our service guarantee. We look after all our family. Yes, we do at every opportunity.
Antillian Group, underwriters of all classes of insurance solutions for your protection and investment. Live well financially.
If there was ever a time to keep and stay healthy, it's now. We at Hills and Valley are here to help you take deliberate steps to maintain your health. We stayed true to maintaining the most comprehensive rates while stocking the widest range of medicines and health devices, including personal protective equipment. There are so many benefits shopping with us. You get great savings through discounts for senior citizens and reward cards for loyal customers. Ask about owning yours today. Visit us at Halifax and Grenville Street, St. George, Jubilee Street opposite the Grenville Bus Terminal, and at Hillsborough, Carriacou. Our wholesale distribution on Halifax Street also stocks the widest range of pharmaceuticals. We are with you on the hills and in the valleys. We are Hills and Valley Pharmacy.
The Grenville Cooperative Credit Union introduces its new digital platform, managing your finances at any time from anywhere.
As a part-time student, balancing work and studies can be a real challenge. But with GCCU's digital app, these worries are no more. My parents can now remotely transfer funds to my account and I can check my balance at any time, giving me the freedom to achieve my goals.
My days can be long and tedious. With this app, I can ensure my loan is paid on time, transfer funds to someone else's account, and check my balances. I don't have to rush to do business during my lunch hour or after work anymore.
With this app, I can request checks to pay my suppliers, letters for my business transactions. I don't have to leave my farm to go stand in line.
The Grenville Credit Union digital platform. It's convenient and secure banking right at your fingertips. Download the app today from the Play Store or App Store or call 442-8602, 459-4325 or 416-8467 for further information.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Doctor and Call. We're talking diabetes, all part of Diabetes Awareness Month. Doc, I have a couple short questions on our WhatsApp platform and also on our Facebook page. Let me take the WhatsApp platform questions first. Someone says, in March this year, my sugar reached 183. In April, it was 145. October, it was 103. In October, I was diagnosed with a heart problem. Does the sugar spike have anything to do with the heart problem?
Very, very good question. Very good question. And I will say, yes, it does, but that patient also has other conditions, such, I'm sure, hypertension, high blood pressure, and they probably has high cholesterol. And the tone of, you read that question, I would say that person is probably over the age of 49, male individual. I wouldn't be surprised. So there are preventable risk factors, and there are risk factors that are not preventable. So yes, the duration and the spike of the blood sugar could have an effect on the endothelium or the inflammation of the whole heart condition, leading to the outcome that the individual described. And here again, those numbers is once a day number. I'm sure the number in March that was 183, if he checks it or if it's at a lunchtime reading, it's probably 200. Or even dinner, it may be even higher. If those numbers you shared with me are fasting or first thing in the morning numbers, those are the questions I'll ask that individual. Are those numbers fasting? If they are fasting numbers, they are high.
Yeah.
So that
or an A1C.
Right, and A1C can help there too. Or I will say this patient is going to bed with an elevated blood sugar. Or, so there are many questions here. It can empower the patients. Yeah.
Right. There's another question that I think I could probably answer myself. Someone is asking, can using too much honey give you diabetes? The answer is yes. Doc, am I correct?
What is too much honey?
Well, I don't know. I think
it's not your husband calling you honey. That would not give you diabetes.
Right.
But it's how long you're drinking too much honey. It's temporal. What else you doing? Because if you're drinking honey has twice the amount of calories as it's similar measure in sugar. So if you have a teaspoon of honey, it has twice as much calories as thing. While the glucose of it might be healthier because of other things in there, honey is sugar. It's sweet.
Yeah.
So we have to consider that.
Right.
Whether it's giving you diabetes or not, since we're not screening, we don't know whether another person actually had diabetes before. As with doctor patients that the patient doctor just spoke about. Yes, you have 183 in April. What else was going on? What was your sugar overall? Have you been testing otherwise? And like he said, you're giving him snapshots. He'd like to see a bigger picture as to what was going on. So
right.
if you have one reading that's high, you need to check others.
Right.
You need to look up at a panache across the board what it is.
Right. So someone else is asking on our Facebook page, if someone is diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, does that mean that person has to go on insulin?
No, it doesn't mean.
Right.
Remember, diabetes is a progressive disease. If you're diagnosed with diabetes, it depends where on the spectrum is that individual. So, for example, if you present to me with a blood sugar, with an A1C, let's say of 8.2 or 8.5 or less than 9, I may tend to start that patient on oral agents, on pills. Now, if this patient presents to me with an A1C of 17 or 20, that means that the average blood sugar is over 350. If that patient's blood sugar, remember what I said, there is a quiz after, right? So be prepared. Now, remember what I said before, that fasting blood sugar should be 65 to 99. So this patient average blood sugar is extremely high, over 350 for the last 3 months. you know that patient has no insulin. So giving them pills will take some, may not be efficacious, may not be enough. So that patient may need some insulin. So it depends again how the patient present and on the diabetes spectrum, we may start that patient on insulin, and as time go along, we may put them or transition to oral agents.
Okay.
And again, it reiterates the point you made earlier, Dr. Matthias, the whole issue of individualizing management. Every person with diabetes is just him.
Yes.
His needs are what it is, where he is, what his complications, his state of complications, how he controls himself, how you support him, how you advise him, and all the rest of it. So we can't do, like I say, cookie cutter. It must be on an individual basis. Every person requires and deserves individual management.
Correct.
So just before we go, another very interesting question from someone. They're asking, someone who is going through the menstrual cycle and those going through menopause, can that affect glucose level even if that person is living a healthy lifestyle?
All right. The hormonal change that the females are going through at that time, and we men can go through it later in life too. So let's put that, clear that the hormonal change may cause some elevation or change in blood sugars through that period of time. Yes, it may have a slightly, to say how much will increase, I have diabetic patients who go through those changes and claim that, and we observe it, that their sugars are elevated at that period of time. Yes, it does occur.
Okay, so that's it for now. That's for the questions on our social media platform. Dr. Nixon, I know you have a couple that you want to.
So Doc, we moving on because we've been talking about all the diabetes and the diabetes. I want you to tell me. So my blood sugar is high. You say I have diabetes. So what? Why is that not good for me? That my sugar is persistent, because my sugar will go up a little after I eat, right? And if my insulin system works well, 2 hours later, my sugar goes back to normal, right? What is considered normal, right? My sugar remains persistently high. I'm always hungry, blah, blah, blah. All the symptoms that come with having diabetes. Why is it important? I mean, why is it important to you? Why you think I need to go and control my sugar?
You said persistently high. That word itself tells me that you are high for a long duration. And think about it. We just had some overflood of our roads and rivers in Grenada. What happens? The destroy of landscape, the destroy of the roads, etc., the erosion, etc. When sugars are high, it destroys. It becomes a toxic. And that toxin itself destroys the inner lining of our blood vessels.
You mean like a poison?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. That poison itself destroys the integrity of our blood vessels, our arteries, making it become more porous to other inflammatory markers, inflammation in our body, creating the bedrock for plaques, for cholesterol to be deposited. And it builds up. And those vessels become narrower and narrower, that you're not getting the flow as you should. Or the integrity of the blood vessels are now weaker. So within our eyes, you start having weak blood vessels and it bursts, and we call it retinopathy, hemorrhage of the eyes. Those high sugars within the kidney form crystals, and that destroys the filterability of our kidneys, leading to nephropathy, towards dialysis. It interferes with the nerve conduction of our feet, and you develop neuropathy, and that may lead eventually to amputation. So sugars persistently high has both short-term, which is the symptoms, because think about it. Remember what Dr. Nixon said, I am hungry. This person is eating. Where is the sugar going? The sugar is staying in the bloodstream. Nowhere. It's staying in the bloodstream. So therefore, the body itself, you start losing weight. Because the body itself, let me use simple terms, eating itself, destroying itself, to provide energy to the cells, to itself. Because
that's why we lose weight.
Yes, and that's what. So unexplained weight loss could be diabetes. Unexplained weight loss in the endocrine world includes diabetes and overactive thyroid. So some of my patients may come saying, Doc, I'm losing weight. Why is my sugar high? It is too high. That's the reason why. So here again, not high blood sugar, you may not have any symptoms on the short term, but it's creating lots of internal damages to the vasculature within our system. And that's why it's very important that even though you feel good, there is internal destruction that is occurring within the blood vessels.
Well, you see, we in the Caribbean tend to feel that if we don't have any pain, everything good, okay? And which is really sad if there's no pain. So hypertension and diabetes, those two bad cousins, we know that they may be painless until we have a big problem. I want you to speak, though, of the red blood cells and the challenges to the red blood cells, which are so instrumental to carrying oxygen to very important, especially the most distant parts of your body from your heart. Speak to the integrity of the red blood cells in relation to elevated blood sugar and what happens to the red blood cells.
No, what happens basically as the sugars are elevated, the red blood cells are exposed to higher levels of sugar. And those sugar molecules stick on the surfaces of the red blood cells. So it's overwhelmed the surface because the red blood cells now act as a carrier of sugar, but it's not going anywhere. It stays on that. But before I go further, remember I used the word A1C, hemoglobin A1C, which is a marker for diabetes to help us with the diagnosis of diabetes. It's actually the quantity or the of sugar molecules on the red blood cells we are calculating, right? That's what an A1C is. So if you're exposed to high levels of sugar, it sticks on the red blood cells, and we are able to use the blood work studies to investigate to know how long you were exposed to high blood sugars.
High levels.
The high levels of blood sugars. And it's a red blood cell lives for 3 months. So we have an idea over a 3 months period how you've been doing. So if you come to me and claim, Doc, I'm doing great, I have everything under control, I said, just let's do the blood test. You do the blood test and you get an A1C, you will know if this patient was exposed to high blood sugars over that 3 period of time. But remember, within the Caribbean, there's lots of sickle cell disease. And
1 in 15.
Yeah, 1 in 15. And because the sickle cell disease, you have smaller red blood cells. So when I
break down faster.
When I do the A1C, there's less sugar on the cell. So I get a falsely low A1C. So we physicians are able to detect that because we will say, why is your A1C 6.5 and you are bringing me blood sugar reading of 200 and 300? So that discordance, that discrepancy, we know something is going on and we could do further investigation, which is very important to know within our community itself. So the sickle cell or any sort of anemia that may exist, it gives you a falsely low A1C, and the A1C is the measurement in a percentage form of your blood glucose over a 3 months average, which is very important.
After your meal, 2 hours after your meal.
2 hours after your meal.
Why 3 months?
Because the red blood cells lives 3 months.
Okay, good.
That's the duration of life of 3 months. That's why. So the turnover
that's making it kind of gold standard.
Yeah, I share reference to my patient. Remember, when you have a car, every 3,000 miles, you change the oil. as someone who is diabetic, every 3 months, we got to know what the A1C is. So I tell my patient that, remember, every 3 months, we have to get an A1C so we'll know how you're doing. Very important. Very important.
I have another question, Doc, that I think. As it relates to diabetes treatment, are there...
Can we hold that?
Okay, no problem. Sure.
Because we're going to look at it quickly, and then we're going to ask the questions about management after. Because we really want the population to get a chance. Dr. Matthias, while your blood sugar is still normal, okay? Because you've been doing a lot, so I guess your sugar is going to drop soon. Hear me? Why? I want you to explain very succinctly, very simply, and and quickly, the difference between type 1 and type 2, or juvenile and adult onset diabetes, and how we manage it. How you would treat it, just categorically. We're not measuring. Just tell us, what is this juvenile diabetes thing, or this early onset diabetes, the juvenile diabetes, and talk about adult, because those are the two big ones. We still have others. We have the gestational, and then we have the late onset juvenile diabetes, which is a challenge that we need to figure out. So just talk about those two, which is take on the 99% of the population.
No, with the juvenile diabetes, there's absolute no insulin available. So those patients will be treated with insulin. They will receive a long-acting insulin and a short-acting. Let me remember what I said to you initially.
Tell me what.
Wait. Hold that point. There's a very important point here. Remember I said sugar comes from two sources. What you eat and what the liver makes. So you need, if you have no insulin, you need an insulin that when you eat, because your sugar is going to go up, so you need an insulin to work with the food. And you need an insulin to work to control the sugar from the liver. And the liver is producing sugar 24/7. So you need an insulin that works along with the liver. And that is called a long-acting insulin, or a basal insulin. And the short-acting insulin, because of eating quick onset of sugar, you need an insulin to work with that too. So as a type 1, you need insulin to control what you eat, and the insulin to control the sugar that is produced from the liver. Am I making sense?
That makes a lot of sense.
Okay? So that's how I will treat.
So you're telling me then, when my 3-year-old or my 4-year-old is diagnosed, I'm sorry, my camera went. When my 3-year-old or my 4-year-old or my 6-year-old or 8-year-old is diagnosed with juvenile, right, diabetes, childhood diabetes, let's call it that for now, I have to give him insulin, right?
Yes.
That's what I just want the population to understand.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So speak to us then about the difference then with big people, adult onset diabetes, which unfortunately you see we're seeing in our young population.
All right. So in our young population itself, who are, well, as you use the term, I'll assume when you say adult onset diabetes, you're referring to type 2 diabetes. I will assume that. So with type 2 diabetes, it is progressive. It progresses because of many factors I alluded to: our lifestyle, inactivity, weight gain, our eating habits, etc., and the loss of beta cell. Because I did mention initially that in type 2 diabetes, the quantity of insulin is depleting. There is a downward slide. The trend is downwards in terms of insulin production. So therefore, you may start with lifestyle change, which we alluded to earlier. Then if we have no progress, so look at this. Lifestyle change, we check the A1C in 3 months to see if there is improvement. There is no improvement. We will look at the readings of the blood sugar. We will see, before meals, this patient blood sugar is normal, but 2 hours after eating, it is high. We will see that. Right? So the question here is, why is this patient blood sugar 2 hours after eating is high? It is most likely because of what they're eating. the carb intake. So we will make some modification there. But if the patient blood sugar is high before he eats and high after he eats, there's a different medication we can use. Or if the patient is struggling with weight, there's a different medication we can use. Again, it's targeted therapy, individualized therapy, and that's what it's all about.
So you mentioned earlier that basically we use for our persons with diabetes, say long and short acting for our juvenile diabetes, and that is established. No oral medications, okay, because they have no insulin. They have nothing for the medications to stimulate. They have no possibility of stimulating insulin release from the pancreas because there's no working pancreas per se. In the adults, we've used two groups of medication, right? We've used, three. I'd say insulin, because insulin has its place, as you say, especially if we have very high A1Cs and we're not seeing any improvement. But the oral medications, what do you recommend as to the pathway to take for oral medications?
Well, I should dispute you here by saying there are not only two classes of drugs we can use, in terms of pathway to follow for management of diabetes. As I alluded to, there's the biguanidines, there's the sulfonylureas, there's the DPP-4s, there's the SGLT2 classes of drugs, at least oral drugs I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. And we could say even the GLP-1 oral drug, because there's an oral drug in that class too. So at least there are there are six, because there is one that can work centrally, like bromocriptine. We could even use that to treat diabetes. So there are oral medication out there that we even have inhaled insulin we can use. Yes. And they are coming out with oral insulin too eventually. So there are many oral drugs out there that we can use to treat diabetes. But here again, we are just following an algorithm. Remember, in my presentation 2-3 years ago, we always say metformin first. Now the American Diabetic Association is saying you can use Jardiance as a first-line treatment with lifestyle change. We are learning more. Jardiance. Okay. That's an SGLT2, empagliflozin. We can use that as a first-line treatment also. Okay. So we are learning more about different drugs and the treatment of diabetes, and they are coming earlier into the treatment regimen itself. So yes, someone presents, I will say, you can start a sulfonylurea, but it depends on the spectrum. You can start a metformin. It depends on the spectrum they are in. You can start other medication. These are just guidelines. They are guidelines. They are not etched in stone, right? And you can change these medications depending on the patient presentation. We use these guidelines basically for exams, In the real world, yes, you use it appropriately. And think about the patient in front of you and what that patient needs, etc. If that patient had a heart attack, if that patient have renal problems, we can decrease the progression of renal insufficiency in these patients by giving them a certain class of drugs. I would not give them, let's say, a sulfonylurea or metformin early. I'll give them another class of drug to help them.
Mm-hmm. So I want you to talk. You said we've been talking about how we use insulin, how we use we do dietary changes, lifestyle changes, getting exercising, not smoking, not consuming alcohol are also very important lifestyle changes that we want to ensure. I want you to speak quickly about complications and preventing complications, identifying, recognizing when things are not going good. We know after a certain amount of years, a kid is going to start to fail, the vision, all the rest. Explain to me, what are the measures we take to monitor the progress or the possibility for complications?
The complications we are talking about, one, small vessels complication, which we characterize as microvascular complication, and we have large vessel complication, which we characterize as macrovascular complications. Now, these complications present subtle. And that's why we recommend that, number one, in patients who are diabetic, every year get an eye exam. Every year you should have a urine evaluation to see if you're spilling proteins. Every year you should have your foot exam to determine if there is decreased sensation, if there is a callus on the foot, etc., if there is loss of vibration sense. That will give us, physician, some idea of what's going on. We also make some suggestion in certain risk factors with patients. It's controversial. Remember the small dose aspirin in individuals to prevent the possibility of stroke, etc. We make the recommendation that if you're diabetic and that you should be on an ACE inhibitor. That's a class of medication that we use to protect the kidneys, etc. We recommend being on a statin. That's a class of drugs to decrease cholesterol, because we know with diabetes, hypertension, high cholesterol, that will lead to the large vessel disease like stroke and heart attack, etc. So those are things that we look at and we screen for every so often. And a physical examination, looking at, for example, your feet, for cold sensation, the dark pigmentation of the skin. All these things are ideas that this patient is developing some complication from diabetes.
So in other words, you're telling me I should go to my eye doctor, and I know Diabetes Association should be doing retinal screen so we can see progressively how the retina looks, the back of the eye, that which from where the visual challenges are going to come. You're telling me I should have my feet checked on my first visit.
Yes.
And certainly as often as I can at home, and the doctor should check my foot every year at least.
Yes.
You're telling me I should make sure and check my renal functions. You're telling me that my cholesterol must be controlled, because remember that diabetes enhances the production of cholesterol in the liver. You're telling me that I must control my high blood pressure, because that's a very bad combination. Those two guys are two gunmen that will shoot on everything they see in your body.
Yes.
And you're telling me also that I should take care of my mood. I should check my emotions, because diabetes works with with depression.
Yes.
And sometimes you don't understand when you're given a diagnosis as diabetes, it will in fact make everybody scared, and depression can come on its own. But we also see a certain increase in the amount of depression that occurs, particularly in people who have diabetes. And so there should be screening for diabetes, because we understand if you can manage people's depression, we'll also be able to motivate them to take better care of themselves.
Correct.
And we're also telling you that you go to the dentist, because also the whole microvasculature can problem, the poor circulation can cause tooth loss.
Well, you're absolutely correct, because a lot of problems we're seeing today in diabetic patients, they have gum disease, and that itself, it could tell us that
and of course, we talk about sexuality, we always put sexuality in a corner. The whole loss of erection and sexual function in people, both male and female, because we tend to think it's because a man doesn't have an erection, he loses erection prematurely, that's a problem. But female also, the whole circulatory challenges.
Because the point, as I mentioned, the high glucose level interfere with the lining of the blood vessel, so the blood flow is obstructed. So you wouldn't get that dilation of the blood vessels that you need for the blood flow, and that will lead to the erectile dysfunction and the lack of clitoral stimulation in female. Yes.
Right. And that aspirin does have its place, because remember that when the red blood cells have so much glucose, they tend to clump together. So it does decrease the agglutination of the vessel.
Right, exactly. Very good point. Very good point. I didn't mention that in your question asked. Yes, correct.
So, Godfrey?
Yes, I'm here.
You ready for us?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I have, before I ask mine, I have a question here on our Facebook page. Someone is asking, some of these drugs can be costly. What can you propose to have these drugs available at an affordable price?
Well,
I can say that again.
The drugs are very costly. Yeah. What can be done to get affordable? need our health ministers to negotiate and bring forward the ideas to the regional, and then the regional negotiate together to get these drugs to our community. It can be
advocacy,
done, but it's hard work. Advocacy is very important.
Yes,
it's very
and it also has to come from the community, doesn't it?
Yes,
it has to come from people participating in agencies like the Diabetes Association, and having a Diabetes Association working in the interest of the population to ensure that that whatever mechanisms, even if it means having a playing field where people drive like pilots on the road, because we talk about people could just walk. There are roads in our country that people just can't walk on the roads because of the way our drivers are so terrible. We drive too fast. Okay, so having recreational facilities in communities, making sure that children play at school or they have playgrounds in the schools, and those kind of facilities are also important, because we have to ensure. I think I've lost Dwight. We also have to ensure that that children can be active at all times. So we have to create facilities in school and in communities, not just for children, but as a prevention, but also for adults, so that people can have space to exercise. Part of the reason, welcome back, Dr. Matthias. Part of the reason why we want to ensure that there are exercise facilities, and you don't have to run like Usain Bolt. Just need to get up and walk. Just need to get up and walk. You need to go out and play like we used to play Ring a Rosie and all the rest, and laugh and breathe and roll on the grass and walk to the beach and swim and all those things. Things that don't cost anything. We are so inactive now that any activity we do is more than what we're doing currently. Right. So we need to get accustomed. And the more you exercise, the more you wish to exercise. So we have to make sure that there are facilities provided so that people can go out and safely exercise, communities like the church, like other youth groups, like whatever social groups are formed, should be encouraging exercise as an activity to prevent and to control diabetes.
All right. So there's another question. Someone is asking, if I substitute coconut water for regular water, will that increase my blood sugar? Dr. Matthias?
A little, because coconut water does have a little bit of sugar. Yes.
But Dr. Nixon, I usually tell patients this: drink your coconut water, 2 hours after the coconut water, check your blood sugar, and you will get that. Okay?
Yeah. So checking blood sugar is very important. Like I said, it's good for empowerment, and giving you a tool. Boy, I drink one coconut water and it was nice and sweet, especially coconut water is about to be able to grate. The sugar content is high. So you really want to, don't be afraid to check your sugar. Don't be afraid to write what you've eaten, so you can go back and look at what you've eaten and say, oh, well, maybe I ate this. And if your sugar is high now, don't stress. If your sugar is high after one reading, just check out the carbs in your next meal. Right? Have some proteins, have a lot of greens, and you work it back, right? So it's a matter of being able to be flexible enough to the point where you get to know what makes my sugar get there, what makes my sugar not get there.
Very good point. And let me highlight that. To be honest, I will tell my diabetic patient, eat anything you want to eat, but 2 hours after you eat, check your blood sugar. They will usually ask me for diet. But I want you to, because as they are empowered with that number, it tells them what the cake does. It tells them what the extra portion of whatever it is does to the blood sugar. It's portion. Coconut water is very healthy. Don't think I'm saying don't drink it, but you are drinking 3-4 glasses, and that could be a problem. You can drink your coconut water, but then after, walk 30 minutes, walk a mile or two, see what happens.
Or remove the slice of yam from your next meal. Right? So you get accustomed, because, again, it's individual. You have to know what works for you. It's also going to depend on the level of activity. So I sit in my office most of the days, and as opposed to a guy who works a compressor, right? What I would eat would be much less than what he would eat. Right? How my sugar is going to function for me, my sugar control is going to be different from what he does, because he uses more energy. If you work in a store and you're walking up and down, you're quite likely to burn a little more sugar. If you're not doing anything, you're going to burn less energy. And so you have to know that you are you, and this is what works for you.
Right.
So there's no, like we said, there's no real cookie cutter. There's no way to cut it and there's a stamp for everybody.
Right. So, Doc, my question to you: are there
Dr. Matthias, right?
Yes, Doctor. he is the guest. Are there any increasing complexities with diabetes treatment? For example, are there any changes, for example, in treating it where, let's say, for example, a patient might be started on one treatment as compared to maybe now with two?
Yes. In regards, here again, targeted therapy. So there are some patients, depending on what their blood sugars are, or their A1C, or their medical condition is, we may start them with one medication. Case in point, all right, someone may have a kidney problem, and they may not be a candidate for oral agents. So I may have to start that patient on insulin, right? Mm-hmm. This patient can take other medication, but because of taking those pills, I can cause further problem. So I will not start that patient on oral agents. Mm-hmm. I will start.
Or you will remove the oral agents if they become insufficient. Yeah.
Yes. I will start them on insulin. And a case in point, in today's environment, etc., if someone comes and they are morbidly obese, I will say I would like some weight loss. I will start a diabetic medication that will give me weight loss. Rather than start them on other medication.
Right.
If a patient presents with heart disease, it's specific. And what you have to remember, this diabetic medication has adverse effects. Some of them has adverse effects, and you will warn the patient about it. The class of drugs, for example, if you are taking sulfonylureas, the diamicron, etc., you can develop low blood sugars. It's a very potent drug to develop low blood sugars. In an elderly patient, 70 years old, who is working in the garden, she goes there for she take a diamicron in the morning, she's not going to eat until 2, 3 o'clock in the evening, that sugar could crash her. You can see Granny lying in the garden unconscious with that low blood sugar. There are certain medications like the SGLT2 class drugs like empagliflozin, which is Jardiance, etc., and Farxiga. They can cause yeast infection, bladder infection, etc. So I will tell the patient, if they are good medication, but I'll tell the patient that these are risks, and I will treat appropriately. If it reoccurs, I said you are not a candidate. Mm-hmm. There are medication that we provide, Januvia, and even some other, the GLP-1 class, like Ozempic and Trulicity and the others that are out there. They can cause pancreatitis. The risk is there, So you have to ask yourself, if you had pancreatitis in the past, and I know you would benefit from this drug, I may be hesitant to start you with that drug. So you see how targeted therapy is.
Right, but what I want to find out, have you seen an increase in the complexity? For example, what I mean is, are you seeing instances where you probably have to start patients on probably higher doses or probably more than one drug today as compared to years gone by?
I do. I use a lot of combination therapy or more than one drug therapy to achieve my goal, especially if the A1C is extremely high. I will not start with monotherapy or one drug therapy in treating my patients. So if you come to me with an A1C in the low end, I may start you with one drug. But many patients today are coming with A1C over 9. What I'm saying to myself, your A1C over 9 didn't occur yesterday. It didn't occur last week or last month. That was occurring the timeline of the red blood cells, at least 3 months ago. And that individual should have had frequent urination, increased thirst, increased fluid intake, very thirsty, etc. And they didn't take heed of that. But because of a sudden change of lifestyle or something happened, they seeked interest. Like a patient said to me on Monday, I was just not feeling well. I was just fatigued. So she decided to go to casualty. And when she got there, her blood sugars were 450.
So Dr. Matthias.
Yes.
Can you speak to the importance of integrative care? Not you alone, not Dwight Matthias alone, or not Sonia Nixon alone. Bringing in the whole team and how important it is.
As I said earlier, diabetes is a complex disease. It's a complicated disease. And I shared earlier of the different organs that are involved with diabetes and its complications. And the integrative care includes the first line of treatment, lifestyle change and empowerment. So you need to see a nutritionist and you need diabetes education. As the theme of this year's Diabetes Month, the International Diabetes Federation, education to protect tomorrow. So the first line is seeing the nutritionist, going to a diabetes class so you can have the foundation, the fundamentals of diabetes. Secondly, we need to have a baseline of the end organs. The end organs I'm referring to the eyes, the end organs, the kidney, the end organs, the lower extremities. So you need to see the ophthalmologist, the eye doctor. You need to see the nephrologist if the primary care provider says you are spilling proteins, you're on medication to protect, and it's just getting worse, and the filtration rate of the kidney, which we call the EGFR, and the EGFR is going down, and your creatinine, which is also a function of the kidney, is going up. You need to see a nephrologist to help us there. You need to see a podiatrist, a foot doctor to help. Because if, for example, that you start developing some discolorization, etc., in the lower extremities, he can assist in doing some pulse evaluation, etc., looking at the foot more in detail to help advise. And also, we need to have a screening in how diabetes affects us mentally, the mental health of individuals, that you should have initially on the diagnosis of diabetes, what is that patient mental status like, their mental health. That will give a good line to it. Right. So those are some of the auxiliaries, or the extenders that helps with diabetes care.
All right. So, Doc, we're getting quickly, close to wrap up. But I just want to open the line for a few minutes. There are some people who are asking if we don't open the telephone lines. So, folks, the telephone number is 435-2041. If you have a question, we have a few minutes. We can take a couple of questions, and try to provide you with the answers that you're looking for. The number again, 435-2041. You can give us a call and we would definitely take your questions. All right. Of course, we're discussing diabetes and everything that surrounds it. We've gone into a lot of details, but of course, we take your questions. So let's go to the telephone. Doctor and call, good evening.
Hello?
Yeah, caller, hello, can you turn the volume of your radio or television down and listen to us on your telephone, please?
I'm using
whatever you're listening to, you need to turn the volume down and listen to us on your telephone.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. Now,
caller, you need to turn the volume of whatever you're listening
down.
To, your TV or your radio.
Or your radio.
Turn the volume down.
And just listen on the phone.
Listen on the telephone.
Probably I need to go a little lower.
Turn it right down and listen. You would hear us on your telephone.
You would hear us, yeah.
I'm trying to understand.
Okay, we need to go on.
Turn the TV volume down to 0.
Yeah. So, folks, when you're calling, you need to turn down the volume of your device, and you would hear us on your telephone. You don't need to listen to us on your TV or your radio. You would hear us on your telephone. Okay. So, turn the volume of your device down and listen to us on your telephone. The number again, 435-2041. You can give us a call and we would take your questions. All right. We don't have much time remaining, and so if we don't get that, then we have to move on. Let's take that final call. Dr. Call, good evening.
Yes, good evening, Godfrey, yes, Dr. Nixon, and I did not get the gentleman's name. What is his name?
Dr. Matthias.
Dr. Matthias, right. So I just joined the program, but I want to understand, I know you're talking diabetes, but could you talk a bit about pre-diabetes, some of the symptoms which may suggest that this person is on a trajectory and is vulnerable to coming down with diabetes? Thank you, listen. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, yes. Doc, you heard the question?
Yes. Right. He wants more information on pre-diabetes.
Yes.
As I alluded to, pre-diabetes is the stage before you become diabetic. It's a spectrum. You have normal blood glucose, then you have impaired glucose, and then eventually you enter into diabetes phase. So it's the phase between presumed normal blood sugar and elevated blood sugar, or the blood sugar is between the range of greater than 99 to 125, 126. So you are in the pre-diabetic, you have high blood sugar, but you are not classified as a diabetic patient in that phase, right? Yes, even in the pre-diabetes phase, patient can have complication like microvascular complication, eye disease, kidney disease, and lower extremities disease. And we usually treat that phase basically with lifestyle change. But if a patient presents or they have high risk factors, like mom and dad have diabetes, I may suggest to these patients we can start treating earlier rather than waiting until you get to the diabetic phase. Yes, this phase is a disease phase. Yes, it's a complicated phase. Yes, some of us in the diabetes world will consider that diabetes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, and so it's a gray zone, but it's just for characterization. They have created this pre-phase, which is a gray zone, but you're on the trajectory to becoming diagnosed with diabetes because we use 6.5 as an A1C or greater than equal of 126 with symptoms, etc.
Okay, thank you very much.
And I think that's important. You know why? Because I characterize diabetes as a galloping horse. And you kind of really need to really put a lasso on a galloping horse very early and tame him. The other thing is that because we tend not to take it as seriously, that's why we have so many people who are ill and so many people with complications. I'm one of the people who say, I don't know what this pre-diabetes thing. I think you're on a trajectory. Let's work with it from now. Yes, I may start with lifestyle and, especially nutritional, but monitoring is very important even at that stage, because you have to start to empower and make sure that people can take control of their lives from early. A lot of persons are afraid. They say, I have pre-diabetes, and they just let it be. But if you let it go, it's going to run away from you. It's going to really be a crazy horse. And by the time you check yourself, you already have diabetes and already start having serious complications. And that is what I'm bothered about, the whole pre-diabetes thing. Because I've seen a general, je ne sais quoi, kind of, I don't really care, the blasé behavior towards pre-diabetes. I think you have to judge on the environment in which you work, and like you say, individual management, whether a patient can really, will he take it seriously, right? And deal with an individual. And of course, it's important that we deliver education. Again, like I said, we need to educate ourselves enough to be able to empower our patients, because when your patient comes to your office as a physician or a nurse, right, they come expecting you to give them information that is real, that is up to date scientifically, and that can make them live. Because after you do this tonight, what you do is raise ants nest. You know that, right? Right? And when ants nest start raising, you need to have things to fix it. Whether it's kerosene, I don't know why I put in ants nest. Godfrey come from a country, you know that. But the truth is, when you have ants nest raised, you have to be able to make people know, yes, you can control this. Yes, you can be in control of this. Understand? So this whole pre-diabetes thing, once we understand this one thing, but being able to say, look, this is a phase when you need your screen, you see this there, let's fix this so you don't end up losing your limb, losing your eye, or dying prematurely.
Right. So Doc, we're basically out of time, but I want to ask one final question, and then you can do your final words before we leave. And the question is just coming from what Dr. Nixon just said. Lack of education, is that a risk factor for diabetes?
Yes.
How do we fix that?
Well, it's the village, right? It's the community. It's the population as a whole. It's Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique as a whole. It's the responsibility of our leaders, and also we have to personalize it. We have to know our family history. We have to know our risk factors, and hopefully tonight we could go further in depth, and we have just touched the surface, giving you more facts. Yes, education is very important to help with prevention, to helping you recognize the signs and symptoms of high blood sugar that tells us, ring the bell saying something is happening, time for us to take heed, because without education we are doomed. And the cost and the death and the depression and the loss of loved ones and the amputation that you see. I never used to see folks on wheelchairs in the roads in Grenada. People on crutches on roads in Grenada. It's just a sad condition. And
that's who you see.
Yes, and it's just a sad condition. So we have to step up our game, and we have to empower. So when you have a friend that every second they're getting up to urinate, you say, well, have you checked your sugar? Be accountable. Go there, ask. They should be screened. And this is what is important. We all should get a physical examination every year.
Every year.
Every year, we should have a physical examination. And our primary care provider will do the necessary tests to inform us, Dwight, you're putting on weight. Dwight, your pressure is going up. Dwight, your skin color around the neck is changing. Mrs. Jones, this is your fourth vaginal yeast infection for this year. So they will recognize and empower patients to say, all right, time to do something. I know this was a lengthy answer, but I want
to make a quick point, because Dr. Matthias, you mentioned early in the discussion, early at the beginning, about drinking black sage tea, and one comment that came from someone was that you advise not to use black sage teas. And so I want to look at it globally quickly, Godfrey, because I think it's important. There are a lot of local bush remedies that people use. I'm not asking people to drink black sage tea, black sage juice, black sage, whatever, rum. I'm serious. You can have a cup of tea. It's just that sometimes you overdo it. And I mentioned last week, I couldn't remember the name of the plant. Dr. Matthias, you know about the use of Old Maid? You know what's Old Maid flour? All of us have a little pan by ourselves. All of us, granny had a pan with Old Maid, right? The Jamaicans discovered, some people discovered that brought the blood sugar down. And then when the people from the research unit looked at it, they also had ablation of their liver functions, although the blood sugars were controlled, right? So it is important that we use evidence-based and that we don't do things in excess. Because black sage might be nice tea, I don't think Dr. Matthias means that we should always drink 10 cup of black sage.
No, I'm not leading to that.
So I'm just but also, if we're going to take herbal medications, you have to make sure that there's evidence that proves that there are no side effects, that it does not interact with what you get otherwise from your doctor, where there's been research on your medication. All due respect to people who do natural medicines and people who have natural things that work for them, remember, interaction is very important. We live in an environment where we take chance with every single bush. I knew every bush from I was a little girl at 4 years old. The point is it good for me? Is it good for me in my context? And again, we have to consider individual management of everybody. How does Dwight, Matthias, or Sonia, Nixon, or Godfrey, Augustine, how does that individual respond to whatever management we want to employ for their well-being? That's very important.
Thank you very much, Doc. Dr. Matthias, I thank you so very much for, accepting our invitation to be here with us. It was such a wonderful pleasure. The information shared. I know our listeners or viewers, I'm certain that many people will start thinking twice about their health and the dangers of diabetes, and the problems it can cause. So we thank you again, and we look forward to having you back. Not too long from now. You were away too long. Yeah, from your last appearance on the show. So we'd like to have you a little more often. So thank you so very much, folks. We thank you very much. Our viewers, our listeners, we thank you very much for staying with us. Of course, the last question I asked about education being a risk factor. It's a very serious, very, very, very serious issue. If you don't have information, you just might be doing something that you should not be doing. And of course, you can always, Dr. Nixon is here, you can always contact her. Her number is 410-6789, or you can visit her at the Bruce Street Mall to get more information. And of course, you have any issues that you'd like, you can, visit her. Number again, 410-6789. We thank you very much. We'll be back next week. Our final episode, I think it is, Dr. Nixon, on the whole diabetes awareness. Very, very important. So be sure to join us. And
can you ask people if they have questions to send them now? Because you probably can address the questions. Because I think a lot of people would have wanted to ask questions tonight, and there wasn't much of an opportunity because there's so much information. It doesn't matter. Your question could be as sound as silly as it is. Send a text to Godfrey, and we just skip to them next week and answer some of the questions.
Yeah, or you can send them to the WhatsApp platform, the same number, 435-2041. You can post your question there. We'll get them, and we'll definitely deal with them next Tuesday evening. So once again, folks, thank you very much. It was indeed a pleasure. We look forward to being with you again next Tuesday for another Doctor and Call. Do have a good night. Thank you very much. Doctor and Call was brought to you with the kind compliments of Antillean Life Insurance, Hills and Valley Pharmacy, and Spice Isle Imaging Center.
Drug abuse, cancer,
measles, diabetes, AIDS, cancer,